Well, if you have a Bible with you this evening, please turn to the Psalms once again. Psalm 33, where we were earlier today, and we're going to continue on with the thought. And I talked earlier today about for love of country. Well, tonight I'd like to talk about the legacy of liberty. The legacy of liberty. Again, our verse is verse 12 in Psalm 33, which says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he hath chosen for his own heritage." Now, notice those words in verse 12. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Apparently, folks, there is a tie between national blessings, a country receiving blessings, and the connection they have with God, their Creator. Now, when it says the word Lord there, notice in verse 12, it's all in caps, capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. When you see that in the Old Testament, of course, the Old Testament was originally written in Hebrew, you know that you have the word what? Jehovah, right? Jehovah. And so what this verse is saying is a country is blessed who has Jehovah as their God. You say, well, of course. No, there are a lot of other gods out there. You know, there's Allah, and there's Krishna, and there's the Great Spirit, and there are thousands of gods out there. But what this verse is saying is the nation that has the one true Jehovah, Lord God, the creator of everything, the sustainer of everything, as their God, they're going to be blessed. They're going to be blessed. So we're talking here about the one true creator God of absolutely everything. And the connection with that nation being really blessed, that is connected to that one God. Now, contrary to what some people would like to admit, the United States was founded as a Christian nation. You say, were all the signers, all 56 of them, were they born-again Christians? I'm not saying that. They were Christian, at least, and being followers of Christ very heavily. Vast majority. There were a few that were deists. By that, it means that there were no atheists of that bunch, okay, of these dozens of men. All of them believed in God. They acknowledged God. They respected God. They feared God. But the vast majority of them, there were Christians. There were just a few deists that believed in God overall. And so we have a nation that really at the beginning was formed as a God-fearing Christian nation. And by the way, that's the same reason there is religious liberty for everybody in the United States. Anyone can practice whatever form of worship they want. It was the Christian people who pushed that forward. And by the way, there were some that wanted a particular denomination to be a state religion, including the Baptist faith. You know who fought that the hardest? The Baptists. We said, no, there needs to be this liberty, this freedom for everybody to worship God as their own conscience dictates. And it was the Baptists who said, no, everybody's got to be able to come here and practice whatever religion they want. Yeah, that's all we've ever known, so we go, yeah. But there are countries in the world right now, we call them closed countries. You cannot preach like I'm preaching right now. You cannot own a Bible, and the name of Christ cannot be distributed freely. They are closed countries in this world. But the United States was started as a predominantly Christian nation, and honestly, our halls out in even Washington, D.C. are saturated with this truth. They're saturated with Bible verses. You know, I visited the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. last month, and we took in all the exhibits and things, and there was this one where you could sit in this room, and it was kind of like going on a drone ride of Washington, D.C. In fact, I had to close my eyes a few times. Ooh, it got a little bit like, but you're in this drone just, and what they're doing is they're going from place to place. And I mentioned that one on the top of the Washington Monument this morning. There's places like that. They bring you into the halls of Congress. They bring you into all these places with the drone, and it shows the Bible verses. The Supreme Court is full of them. The Capitol is full of them. They're all over the place. And we find we have definitely a Christian foundation. And with this foundation, we have a great liberty like no other country has ever experienced. You know, many believers throughout history have lived under tyranny. And very different from what we understand here. The gospel could not be preached openly. We live in a country where you can own a Bible, where we can gather in a church like this at a given time, where we can evangelize publicly, where we can raise our children and teach them Bible truths and so on and so forth. There was somebody who asked a Christian from the former Soviet Union years ago, what is the greatest difference between American Christians and Soviet Christians. This was the reply. I quote, "You have many freedoms and do not realize their value. We had few freedoms and therefore treasured every one." Treasured every one. I said earlier today, sometimes we don't appreciate the things we have until they're gone. And often we value a blessing only after it's threatened, and then we kind of like panic and go, oh no. We need to be grateful for God-given liberties. We have those liberties here in the United States, and we need to recognize the value of that liberty. And we need to be engaged in the stewardship of these liberties, and we need to be defending these liberties and recognizing any threat to these liberties. Galatians 5:1 says, "Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free." And so we need to stand fast. I talked about that word earlier today. We need to stand fast in these liberties that we have, because God has afforded us a tremendous opportunity at this time in history to live in the greatest nation on the earth, the most prosperous nation on the face of the earth. But let me just say this about prosperity. There's a real danger in a nation prospering. With that prospering comes pride and arrogancy and a forgetting of God. And if we study history, we need to look no further than even the Jewish people who were given liberty. They got out there in the wilderness. They began to complain, take some things for granted. I want to just read to you here. Hold your place. But in Deuteronomy chapter 8, you find the man of God, Moses, describing how this plays out. In verse 11, he says, "Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God, in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, lest, when thou hast eaten and art full, and hast built goodly houses and dwelt therein, and when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thou hast is multiplied, then thine heart be lifted up, and thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage." You see how this happens? And we find the warning given here. Don't let it go there. Now, there's kind of a catch-22 when a nation honors God. Let me explain this to you. When we follow, as our text says here in verse number 12, "Blessed is a nation whose God is the Lord." And a nation like ours makes a decision to follow the one true Creator God. There's going to be some blessings upon that nation. But with those blessings, what often happens comes an apathy and comes an indifference and an ignoring of the very one who gave us those blessings. It's a catch-22. Judges 2, and I talked about this earlier today, this happened to Israel. The Bible says there arose another generation after them which knew not the Lord. That's what happens. Aren't those sad words? There arose another generation after them which knew not the Lord. And I said this earlier today. We're only one generation away from all of that liberty being lost, because when a nation walks away from God, it's walking towards sin. I mean, if you think this thing through, here's God, here's purity, here's holiness, here's perfection, here's God over here. When a nation walks away from that, there's no other direction to go but sin. And that's what happens. The results are disastrous without fail. Proverbs 14:34 says, "Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people." So it is godliness, it is holiness, it's morality, it's righteousness that exalteth a nation. But boy, sin takes a nation down. It's a reproach to any people. So, how can we prevent this? Well, first of all, never stop being grateful for the God-given liberties that we have. Do not take those for granted. Never stop being grateful for our God-given liberties, because may I say, America's freedoms did not happen by accident. In James 1:17, the Bible says every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. These blessings that we've been seeing now for 250 years, they come from God. Every good gift, every perfect gift is from above. Never stop being grateful for those gifts from God, the gift of liberty. Secondly, recognize the price of liberty. The price of liberty. It's easy to say the old motto, freedom's never free, but it's not. And for America, liberty required sacrifice in the past from soldiers and statesmen and pioneers and citizens, everyday people, like a ton of sacrifice, a lot of sacrifice. And for believers, For believers, our liberty can ultimately be traced back to Calvary, because the greatest liberty ever purchased was spiritual liberty. And we read in 1 Peter 1:18 that you were not redeemed with corruptible things, but with the precious blood of Christ. Notice that word, redeemed. You were not redeemed with a work salvation by joining a church, by observing certain things, getting baptized and all of that. No, we were redeemed with the precious blood of Christ. When Christ went to that cross, he shed that blood for our sins so that we could be redeemed. Well, the liberties we enjoy nationally should also remind us of the liberties that have been purchased spiritually. And there's a connection between the two. But it requires sacrifice. It required sacrifice on the part of Christ. It required sacrifice on the part of our founding fathers and the colonialists. During the Constitutional Convention, there were a number of delegates, and they left their homes and their businesses and their farms and their families, and they left that all behind. I mentioned the signers of the Declaration of Independence. A number of them lost fortunes. Some of them lost their sons in war. Some of them lost their own lives. And all of them understood that as they signed that Declaration of Independence, they were most likely signing their own death warrant. They knew this could be it. And they understood that liberty had a cost. Sadly, today there are a number that they live in this country, and they're not only un-American, we're getting to the place, folks, where it's anti-American. We have folks living amongst us now that hate America. And you say, how did this ever happen? Some of them were in public office. It's unthinkable. I thought I would never live to see the day when this is going on in the United States of America. It's incredible. Which brings me to my third thought. One, I said, never stop being grateful for our God-given liberties. Two, recognize the price of liberty. Thirdly, recognize the threat to liberty that every generation faces. Sometimes a threat comes from a foreign country. Sometimes a threat comes from internal corruption. We've certainly seen that. Sometimes that threat comes from moral decay, the very moral fabric of the culture and the society, and so on and so forth. But history repeatedly demonstrates that when a country forgets God and it turns to sin, it's just a matter of time before it decays and falls in and implodes, basically, and collapses from within. And we need look no further than Rome to see where this actually happened. They were never conquered. They just collapsed. And I said earlier today, the only thing we seem to learn from history is that we never learn from history. God help some of our leaders to become students of history. If just some of these naive politicians, if I could be honest, would just study history, they would be much wiser. Now, our text tells us in verse 12, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And when that ceases to happen, that nation goes down. And I talked about the period of the Judges earlier today. And at the end of the book of Judges in the Old Testament, it sums them up by saying, every man did that which was right in his own eyes. That really describes the United States and what we're coming to today. That could be our epitaph. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. We find that Judah, before the destruction by Nebuchadnezzar in the Babylonian captivity, that's what they had arrived at. There are countless others of examples. And oftentimes, it's that prosperity of that particular nation that leads to their pride. What happens when a nation becomes prideful? Well, the Bible says not only does pride go before a fall, but God resisteth the proud, right? So you've got a proud nation, and you've got the very one we're supposed to be following now resisting them. It's not a good recipe. I think the greatest threat to liberty may not be an invading army, but a departure from God. You see the difference? Ronald Reagan said, the Constitution was never meant to prevent people from praying. Its declared purpose was to protect their freedom to pray. We've turned some things upside down here. We've told our kids they can't pray in school, and Reagan comes along and says, no. That's not the purpose of the Constitution, to prevent people from praying. It actually is to protect the freedom to pray. And that's really, as a nation, what it was all meant to be. You know, I hear this expression thrown around a lot out there, the separation of church and state and so on. And then the Constitution said, well, it's not even in the Constitution. And people don't even understand it's an expression taken from a letter written by Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptists, telling us that government would not be sticking their nose into the affairs of a church and infringing upon the God-given rights of a church, but they've twisted that thing around and said, well, religion has no place, in saying that we ought to do this as far as morality goes and so on and so forth. They really don't understand it. And as a result, these advances they see, the so-called progress they're promoting here, is away from God. Now, I understand it. People need to have their rights and their liberty and so on and so forth. But as they have theirs, we don't have ours. And there is a difference. And you need look no further than our neighbors to the north to see where you cannot even preach now on certain things in that country. And it's coming to a country near you very soon, unless we take our stand, folks. We've got to take our stand, because we have something here precious, and it's something worth fighting for. When Benjamin Franklin stepped out of Independence Hall in 1787, and they had just gotten done hammering out the Constitution. It was Constitutional Convention, and they laid it out, and somebody asked him, what kind of government do we have? And he replied, a republic, if you can keep it. If you can keep it. Franklin was a student of history, and he knew that the lifespan of the average country, the average empire, was somewhere between 200 and 300 years before it just ran full circle and it imploded. And he said, a republic, if you can keep it. Well, he saw what was coming. He also realized that freedom requires maintenance. Freedom requires maintenance. No generation can coast on past convictions of the previous generation before them. We have to practice maintenance. And so we find these three things. The fourth is this: as fellow Americans, we need to steward and we need to defend our liberties. This is something that's just not inherited and okay, we just go with it. It's something that has to be stewarded, and now it's our turn. And we need to pass something on to our kids and their kids. I read this to you this morning, but God explains so well in Psalm 78 the consequences of how this plays out if we're not cognizant of it. And so he tells his people, Psalm 78:4, we will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and his wonderful works that he hath done, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God. And so our responsibility is to pass this on to the next generation. By the way, that's why we need messages like this, folks. It's our responsibility, not merely to celebrate a holiday and America's past and all that, but to preserve a biblical truth for America's future by teaching these things to our children. That's the only way they'll know them. Evidently, there are some folks in high places now, their parents never taught them these things. And so our kids learn this stuff at home also by attending a New Testament church like this. And that baton cannot be fumbled from this generation to the next generation. And so that's how we preserve our liberty. Now, we also preserve our liberty by living righteously. Proverbs 14:34 says, righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And so we preserve our liberty by guarding our own heart, keeping our own heart right, keeping our holiness in check, if you will. And then, of course, here's another big one. We preserve our liberty by voting. And not just voting for the best looking person, the person with the name recognition. Voting biblically. Boy, that's important. Voting biblically, not by the pocketbook. There are a lot of people, and they say, keep those freebies coming, and we'll vote for you, and so on. Do we realize somebody has to pay for those freebies? Are we thinking here? Or does it matter? And so we don't vote by our pocketbook. We don't vote according to name recognition. Boy, it's so easy to say, well, I've heard of them. That is so shallow. You follow the candidate, and you see what they believe. You do your homework, and you see what they believe. And finally, we preserve our liberties by doing what I'm doing right now, and that is proclaiming the gospel. proclaiming the gospel. This one goes undetected, and I talked about this earlier today, but there is a real famine of true gospel coming from the average pulpits today across America. And so as a result, that liberty is not getting handed off. You know, a relay race is not run by one runner doing really well, really running fast. A relay race mostly is won as a result of the exchange of the baton. If that baton is dropped, the race is over. The success is in the handing off of the baton. Now, our forefathers have handed to us tremendous freedom. Tremendous freedom. It's been defended all along, over and over again. It's been tried and tested. The only question is, what are we going to hand on to our children now and our grandchildren? Because the greatest threat to America's future is not that we have too little freedom, but that we forget the very God who gave us that freedom. That is the premise. Liberty is a gift. Oh, but it has a price. It has a price. Liberty demands stewardship. And as we celebrate 250 years of God's blessings upon this country of ours, we need to determine we're not just going to bask in that liberty. Oh, look at this. This liberty is wonderful. But we are going to do everything we can to preserve it while we're here on planet Earth, because Christians are being muffled right now, if you haven't noticed. And we need to fight. Nehemiah 4:14 says, fight for your brethren. Fight for your sons. Fight for your daughters. Defend those liberties and use them for the glory of God. They go together. Use those liberties, God-given, for the propagation of the gospel, so that we can get the gospel around our land, around our world. Psalm 85:6 says, wilt thou not revive us again, that thy people may rejoice in thee? God, give us a revival, Christian people, a revival. America doesn't need stronger politics or a stronger military or a stronger economy as much as it needs spiritual revival. And the surest safeguard of liberty is through the people who fear God, and they love truth, and they walk in righteousness, and they take their stand. Back in World War II, there was a lieutenant by the name of John Robert Fox. John Robert Fox was held up in an Italian village. And after the civilians had escaped, the German soldiers overran the town. He had a radio there in a secluded place, and Fox radioed artillery coordinates to his own position to bomb. Stop and think about what he was doing. He said, you need to bomb this. And the artillery commander even questioned the order, and he said, I repeat, fire and fire now. And they bombed the town. They bombed it, and the shells destroyed the German advance, and it preserved the lives of many people. But when the Allied forces retook the town, they found well over 100 German soldiers dead, and they found Lieutenant John Robert Fox among them. He knew what would happen. He knew it meant his life, but he sacrificed himself to save hundreds of others, maybe more, in the German advance. And he was awarded the Medal of Honor afterwards. But my point is this: sometimes preserving freedom and liberty requires somebody to pay the ultimate price, doesn't it? The ultimate price. That's exactly, by the way, what Jesus Christ did. Not merely to preserve earthly liberty, but to secure eternal freedom and liberty. And so throughout the day today, we've been talking about liberty, we talk about freedom, and that is the very theme of our cantata this evening. It's called 250 Years of Liberty, and it's time now for me to present to you the 2026 Fargo Baptist Church Patriotic Cantata.
Forever may Today, with grateful hearts, we gather to celebrate 250 years since the birth of this great nation we call the United States of America. Our nation has become a worldwide symbol of liberty, attracting millions of people from around the world to the hope of a life of freedom, both for themselves and their posterity. This desire was present in the hearts of the earliest colonists in 1620 as they sought to plant a new colony for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith and the honor of king and country. Over the next 150 years, conflict grew between these pursuits, and by 1775, the 13 colonies were compelled to take up arms in defense of freedom. On July 2, 1776, the Continental Congress voted to declare independence. 2 days later, it ratified the text of the Declaration, which begins, "The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness." The framers of the Declaration continued laying a strong foundation, listing 27 reasons for separation from English rule. While declaring independence from despotic and tyrannical rule, they clearly declared dependence on the Almighty in the concluding paragraph stating, "We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." On a hot summer's morning in July 1776, a group of 55 men met in a Philadelphia courtroom. They were just ordinary men from various walks of life, but they all shared a common dream: to win for their children and their children's children the glorious prize of freedom. On that day, an infant republic dared to defy the might of a great empire, and the American Revolution fanned into a flame which could not be snuffed out. A song was born in the hearts of those new Americans, a song we're still singing, and it rings with the joy of freedom.
For the future. One of the most beautiful of all American songs was written by a young English teacher as she sat viewing the world from the highest mountaintop in Colorado, surrounded by the grandeur of jagged mountain peaks and the beauty of spacious skies. Catherine Lee Bates offered our nation the immortal words of the song, America the Beautiful.
Would you stand with the choir? Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Great singing. Please be seated.
Rising majestically from New York Harbor is the colossal copper statue of a lady. In her right hand, she holds aloft a flaming torch, a lamp shining with such brilliance that its beacon of hope to the farthest corners of the earth. The lady's name is Liberty. Casting a sense of sudden greatness on all who beheld her, this tall and beautiful sculpture stands draped in the noble dreams of free hearts everywhere. Her enormous expression is not one of force, but of freedom, not one of power, but of love. For somehow, when we gaze into her eyes, she makes us feel the magnificence of being human. For 140 years, this stirring symbol has graced the gateway to our home, endearing herself warmly in our hearts, ever reminding us of the very essence of our country, to which we owe our allegiance. The most famous inscription is a bronze plaque mounted inside the statue's pedestal. It features the 1883 sonnet, "The New Colossus," by Jewish-American poet Emmett Lazarus. Ms. Lazarus worked hard aiding the Jewish refugees in the New York City as they fled the violent Eastern European pogroms of the early 1880s. The poem was originally written to raise funds for the pedestal's construction, but later it transformed the statue into an iconic universal symbol of hope and immigration. Not like the brazen giant of Greek frame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gate shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, she cries, with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door.
We cannot rightfully celebrate that joy or our freedom without remembering the great price paid for that freedom. When we consider the untold numbers of men and women who chose to set aside their personal ambitions and dreams to assure the well-being of our nation, we stagger at the eternal debt we owe. We are indeed the beneficiaries of those who have made and will continue to make tremendous sacrifices for the advancement and surety of our liberty. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is us for the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall have not died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth.
Our next piece is a salute to our armed forces. If you have served at any time in any of the branches, as the theme song for your branch comes, would you please stand and remain standing for the entire song, that at the end we might look around and appreciate all who have served.
Break
250 years have passed since the birth of our nation, and we find the world very different now. And yet, as John Kennedy so clearly reminded us, these same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. We dare not forget that we are heirs of that first revolution. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans, born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and success of liberty. Today, as we reflect on the blessings of our liberty, we would be right to pause and ask God's help, that we may be faithful stewards of the freedom we've been granted. We remember the sobering words from Scripture, that to whom much is given shall be much required. May we echo the prayer in President Reagan's inaugural address, that God would continue to hold us close as we fill the world with our song, a song of unity, affection, and love. May we remain one people, under God, dedicated to the dream of freedom that God has placed in the human heart. As we conclude today's program, may we share in a sense of gratefulness and patriotism, as well as personal responsibility to defend this liberty and pass it on to the next generation. Perhaps you are asking, what can we, the people of 2026, do to help preserve the freedoms we have today and fight for this country? You may not see yourself as some great patriot, soldier, or leader, but every one of us here has great potential to influence those around us, especially the generations to come. What can we do? First and most importantly, pray. For 250 years, America has been held up by the prayers of its people. Through every trial, wars, divisions, or cultural upheaval, men and women of faith have turned to God for wisdom, guidance, and strength. By God's grace, America remains a beacon of freedom to the world. As we look forward, we must again commit ourselves to pray, because the future fight for freedom begins on our knees. Please commit to praying for America today. Secondly, speak out for truth and righteousness. The battle being waged against biblical principles in our nation is a fight against the very foundations of our freedom. Certainly our speech must be with grace, but we must not fail to speak up for the godly principles and their impact on our liberty. This is critical in our homes, our churches, our workplaces, and by exercising our freedom to vote. Finally, get personally involved. Look for ways to serve your community and your nation. We need God-fearing people involved in both public service and in support of those serving. This may mean military service, elected office, volunteering time to the election process, or other things. These things are not simply civic exercises. They are spiritual stewardship of liberties that God intended to continue from generation to generation. May God bless you, and may God bless America.